So yeah, let's talk about the Japa syndrome. You know, immigration is an age-long tradition that is very much part of human culture. You even see it in animals migrating. But the issue in Nigeria, the dimension has taken a worrisome one. In 2021, for instance, the World Bank had said 50% of Nigerian youths want to leave the country. But in 2021, a report by the African Polling Institute said that 7 out of 10 Nigerians will be willing to go abroad if they had the resources. And the number of skilled work and study visas that the UK alone gave has increased by 210% between 2019 and 2021. That's from 19,000 to a whooping 59,000. Personally, I can't count the number of people in my space, friends and acquaintances that have relocated from Nigeria. More than often, you see WhatsApp statuses of people selling their properties. You can tell that they are on their way out. So sometimes it feels like a mini rapture. Someone that you see often in your area or at your workplace, you just do not see them again, and then you find out that they have left the country. There's also the way folks, hi guy, I'm in Canada. We'll talk about whether your friend owes you that information sometime later. But before now, the news used to be that some young people are being taken advantage of through human trafficking. They take them through the desert and the Mediterranean Sea to Europe. But right now, more privileged Nigerians are joining the trend. The narrative is fast changing. The middle class, people who are gainfully employed. Some people spend as much as 20 million naira to relocate their families out of this country. So those are not poor people. Those are young, upwardly mobile, middle-class Nigerians on whose shoulders we should have built this country. We're talking about what politicians are going to do about it, particularly the APC, because we're hearing that the presidential candidate has vowed to put an end to the Japa syndrome. We'll find out how he intends to do it and if there's a track record of that from his leadership in the past. Ayobami Oyalowo is a member of the Public Affairs Committee of the APC Presidential Council and is my guest this morning. He joins us live from our Abuja studio. Mr. Oyalowo, let's begin with some background story to this. What do you make of what appears to be a surge in relocation, particularly among young Nigerians these days?
Well, good morning. Clearly, we have been hearing about the Japa syndrome, like you rightly cited in your introductory narrative. However, I think there must be context to everything. Probably because we are in a wave or in a situation where there is a lot of information. It appears that the Japa thing looks big, but I was studying the statistics recently, and from all the countries that people are traveling, relocating to places like Canada, UK, and US. Nigeria happens to be number 13 on the list. We're not even number 1. We're not even in the first 10. But the thing about us is that we have a way of making so much noise about stuff than others do. Nepalese, Indians, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, even Chinese happens to be far ahead of us in terms of the number of people who are relocating from their countries to other places. However, the noise about Nigeria and Japa, you will think it's only in Nigeria. It's a worldwide phenomenon. And if you have been following history, many people must have heard the word Andrew. Andrew. It is not new. It happened at that time. So the organization that was saddled with informing Nigerians and orientating Nigerians came up with that. Andrew, Nigeria is our country. We have no other place. Let us stay and salvage it together. I'm sure many people who are maybe their mid-40s upward will remember the phenomenon of the Andrew. And also, if you also remember, in that same period in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, a lot of our medical doctors then moved to Saudi Arabia. Many of them came back later on. Clearly, I think we like to make everything about ourselves. And it is not really the reality. Yes, people are living in numbers. I will not downplay that. But like I rightly said, we are not top 10 in terms of Japa syndrome. The other people who are ahead of us do not make the kind of noise we make about it. And then when they leave, they are not derogatory. I have been opportune to go to some countries, and you find out that for one Nigeria, you will find in this place, you will find 10 Indians, you will find 15 Bangladeshi, you will find 12 Pakistanis. These guys are relocating in numbers. However, the difference between them and us is they don't make as much noise as we make. Secondly, they are more, how do I put it now? They have the love of their country more. If you look at Indians, they went to the United Kingdom in large numbers at the time, learn the tricks and the ways of their medical profession. And today, India has become like a destination for Nigerians to seek for medical aid. So people live for different reasons. However, the context must be put to it. I am sure in the course of this our discussion, I'll be able to put some context and clear some misinformation, and then also help to widen and broaden the discussion. That's my hope and belief during this discussion.
Made light what many will call the exodus of young Nigerians. You're talking about the patriotism. Some would say, what's there to love? There are two reasons why Nigerians are leaving this country: bad economy, insecurity, occasioned by corruption. Those are the main things that the current administrations campaigned on. I read out the figures earlier, so I understand your comparative analysis with other countries, but there is a track record to show that there's over 200% increment in the number of people who are leaving this country every day. Do you consider it an indictment on the APC government?
Like I told you earlier on, it's easy to blame somebody or blame a government. But like I also told you, do you want to blame the government of those other countries where we are not even top 10? No, I said people live for several reasons. At times, many of our people just live because their friends have left and they think it is the right thing to do. So because somebody has left, I too must leave. Because my friends have left, I must also leave. Because my colleagues are leaving, I must also leave. We are already seeing stories of people who left without adequate planning, and a lot of challenges they're experiencing challenges. Just yesterday, I saw a video of a huge number of Nigerians being deported back from Dubai. We also have heard of news, and we've seen it, of a huge number of them being brought back from all manner of places. I want to also ask, what have been the contribution of the people? It's always easier to blame the third party. It's always easy to blame the government. But if you want to travel out of the country, it costs you minimum of, let's say, 10 million naira. So if you have 10 million, things are not really as bad for you as it were for other people. The issue is maybe you are looking for something that you think you will not get here. However, like I said, I am not going to lay blame on the government or the people. I would say everybody have their own reason. But you need to also put a context to this thing. Look at everybody saying Japa, they are leaving. Have you seen the northern Nigerian young people, the educated ones, leaving? I am yet to see them leaving. Even if they left, they are leaving to study, and most of them, they will still come back. There is a problem with us in the south here, and these are issues we must talk about. Everything should not be blamed on just the federal government. We, as a people, must look at how have we laid our bed over the years. Because I have been fortunate to interact with people from the north in Abuja that I have been for a while, and I don't see the northern youth running out of the country. Yet, if we want to look at it critically, probably the insecurity affects them more. So why are you telling me that insecurity is why people are leaving? People that are left, in the highest number of people that have left, most of them are either from Lagos or thereabout. Are you telling me that Lagos has more insecurity than they have in the north? So we ourselves, when we make comment, we commentators must be very careful, because when you begin to shine a light and try to attack everything that has to be about us, we are not helping our young people. Clearly, like I tell you, check the people living. If not all, a huge number of them are from the south. So are we saying the southern part of Nigeria is more insecure than areas where they have been ravaged by Boko Haram? No. If people want to live, they want to live. You can't tell them not to live. But what I'm saying is that why are they living? If you say economy is bad, you are able to raise 10 million naira to go and look for jobs, to either work in train station, work in the cold and stuff. So that means life is not as bad for you. You are living for whatever reason you want to live, and nobody can stop you from living. I have seen
of why people are leaving, because that's perhaps the issues that you have raised in your commentary. If you can hear me, let us attempt to answer to some facts and figures based on what we know. I hope you can hear me. Based on what you have mentioned, that the larger part of those who are leaving are from the south. We don't have facts and figures to back that up. But there are a few things that we know as to why many Nigerians are leaving. Unemployment rate at its high, 33.3% in the last quarter of last year. Erratic power supply. The ASU was on strike for some 8 months. Many Nigerians are leaving for better and quality education. There's also many Nigerians who are concerned about the future of their children. Right, so somebody can raise 10 billion, 20 million. Well, you might think they're not doing badly, but they are also considering the projection, the economic projection for the nation. There is the issue of many Nigerians also who would tell you that they do not dream raising their children in this part of the world. Some will say that there's a large disconnect between the privileged few in Nigeria, particularly politicians, their families, those who are neatly collected to them, and the mass majority of Nigerians who are poor. The NBS puts it at over 130 million people who are living in multi-dimensional poverty. So I'm waiting for my guest to be back. I think we lost connection with him. But there are facts, there are facts and there are figures as to why Nigerians are leaving. And you can narrow it down to the issue of economy. You can bring it to the issue of insecurity. And of course, the challenge of corruption. Now, these are the three major things that the Muhammadu Buhari administration campaigned with in 2015. So we're trying to find out precisely how this government is responding to it and how it's campaigning for continuity. My guest, for instance, I believe was a former spokesperson for Nigerian diaspora for Asiwaju. I also would like to hear from him what Nigerians who have left the shores of this country for better life in Europe and other places, how they are reacting to the APC's call for continuity in government. Well, those are the issues that we're looking at this morning. All right, we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll be back with our guest for more on this development.
Join me, Precious Amayo, as I bring you news from the epicenter, where it happens and when it happens, staying on top of every breaking story, minute by minute, right at the hour when the city gets busy and just before it sleeps. We're live from every angle with objective insights and analysis. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Politics is defined as getting what, where, when, and how. But in the mix, many things come to play to shape the political fortune of any country.
Honorable Minister, that's how you misinform the public.
From the political actors to the electorate, campaign to voting, from debates to policy decisions, big events happen to engage us in constant conversation.
That's what we're looking for. Not some people who are talking about ethnicity. No.
Who is on your mind?
Don't worry.
Join me every day on Politics Tonight, where we dissect issues that shape our political destiny. Politics Tonight, weekdays on TVC News.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw ether material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Voted as the best TV station of the year. TVC News breaks into the core of every event as they happen. Following all nationwide big and impactful stories. Without the news from every perspective. Covering every human angle. I am Veronica, bringing you the news you would want to watch.
Every week, Green Angle, in partnership with Wild Aid, will bring you a documentary series on environmental issues affecting Nigeria's amazing biodiversity, from climate change, air pollution, and wildlife environment. It airs every Saturday at 4:30 p.m. only on TVC News.
The National Assembly is a busy place. As the bastion of democracy, it is a place where bills are presented, motions debated, laws made, and the yearnings of the people are laid bare. Come with us as we take you through the workings of the National Assembly. We take you through plenary democratic process.
Nigerians are leaving the shores of the country in droves. So we're finding out why and what the APC intends to do about it as it raises issues around this election. Ayobami Oyalowo, Member Public Affairs Committee of the APC Presidential Council, joins me live from Abuja. We're going to talk in a short while about the Asiwaju manifesto and how it intends to address these issues. But you have raised some very interesting points about how Nigeria is not unique, how immigration, the large scale of immigration is not unique to Nigeria, and how some privileged few are also leaving the shores of the country. Well, I'd like us to speak to some more peculiar local issues. I mentioned that earlier while we lost connection with you, the issue of erratic power supply, how it's affecting small-scale industries and eating deep into the industrial ability of young Nigerians. There's the issue of health. There are many politicians today, when they fall sick, they don't trust the health system in Nigeria. They leave the shores of this country. Talk about education. ASU was on strike for forever last year. And there are many people who are looking elsewhere for a more reliable and sustainable educational system. But my question to you is, who living in multidimensional poverty in Nigeria, and perhaps that's what's making it difficult for government to see the real reasons behind this exodus.
Okay, thank you. I want you to also understand that we as a people have a responsibility to our own selves. Let me try and break this down. By the time the British people left us in 1960, we were a population of about 40 million. Britain was a population of about 50 million. It's just 60 years and a little now. Britain is a population of about 65 million, including immigrants. We are a population of 200 and something million. So clearly there must be disconnect. Clearly there must be challenges of infrastructure and governance and so many other things. So it's easy to blame everybody, like I said earlier, but we have to look at ourselves. Our rate of production is of producing human beings, no matter how much our growth rate is in terms of GDP. If we continue to produce too many people per capita, compared to what we are producing as a country, it doesn't matter which government we have in place. If a country that colonized us has added 15 million people in 65 years, 63 years now, and we have added 140, 50 million people in the same period of time. It's not sustainable. So we can sit down till tomorrow and abuse the government, but why don't we ask ourselves, where do we produce this kind of human beings from? What exactly is our end goal when we have more population than our infrastructure can carry? I am not absolving government of its responsibility. Please don't misunderstand me. I am saying when we hold the government to account, we must hold ourselves to account also. I mean, it's just the day I looked at this population comparison between Nigeria and Britain, I know that our problem is deeper than we are looking at it. Now let's talk about government and what government needs to do. I agree clearly we must have a proper health care system, we must have proper education and all sorts. But many people who travel abroad to go and do a master's degree, don't forget they went with a certificate from Nigeria where they did their first degree. So if it was that bad, I don't think they would get admission with their first degree. That's number one. Number two, I read also yesterday somewhere a lady talking about the fact that she's in the US and her colleagues, her friends were saying they were owing education grants or education loan of up to $70,000, $100,000 and they may not be able to finish paying in 30 years. And they asked her, how much are you owing? And she said she's owing nothing. And then she now threw it in that, oh, I actually must look at the good first before we look at the bad. I have a friend who just left for Canada towards the end of last year. And I asked her honestly, I said, why did you leave? She said, because everybody is leaving. She has no reason to leave. She just got a job from one bank to another, got elevated, well paid, drive a nice car, live in a decent environment, and we'll say here in Abuja. And she just decided to leave because, so why did you say? Because somebody tried it and I decided to try it and it worked for me. So at times, it is not all gloom and doom. Some people leave because of peer pressure. Some leave because they just felt, okay, they want to take pictures in the snow and then send back home. Everybody have reasons for leaving. But yes, government must take care of us. Government must do its own part. But as a people, we must do our own part. Let me put it to you like this. You are an educated young man, you have a decent job, you get a decent pay. I am sure if you are married now, maybe you have 2, 3 children at the maximum. But go outside, look at the extremely poor one among us. Because it's easy to say we have 130 million people. But why do we have that number? Because your security guard, your driver, the one who is poorer than you, has probably 2, 3 wives, probably has 7, 12 children, and then you are blaming government. Seriously, if you cannot blame ourselves for some of the things we actually brought upon ourselves, let's not continue to think government will come and take care of my children. If I have a job and my job can support myself and 2 children, why on earth do I want to marry 3, 4 extra wives and then have 4, 5 children from each of them and then sit there every day and then complain that Nigeria is bad? So people need to also plan their lives. Government will not help you plan your life. You must plan your life. So like I said, if somebody can raise 10 million naira to go and take picture in the snow and then try to work in a supermarket when he was a bank manager here, then it is a choice. You can't stop them. However, you can make Nigeria competitive to the point that people cannot take what they think they want to take. If our education system was as horrible as people are making it look like, you will not carry a Nigeria certificate to go and do a master's in either the UK or the US. So yes, there are challenges. I won't take that away from Nigeria. We have economic challenges. However, the entire world has an economic challenge too. Now,
it is really
the UK that we are
amazing
talking about, have you followed the news recently? The people of that country themselves, the doctors and teachers from that country, are actually migrating to Singapore themselves as we speak. So now
it's
they are opening their
how.
So you see why you are complaining about our own, their own people are complaining about their own.
Permit me to jump in very quickly. It's amazing how you make light of people's decisions. Someone who can raise 10 million and say they travel out to take a picture in the snow. I don't think it is fair. I mean, someone who has brain enough to make as much money we definitely know what they're doing, what they have seen, why they have left the shores of the country. It's also interesting, just a minute. It's also interesting the point you have raised about population explosion in Nigeria, how our population has grown by 370% in 62 years, in variance with 30% in the UK. That also is largely based on the show demographic dividend. That's what China is doing with its population, growing one of the biggest economies in the world. It lies at the shoulder, at the doorstep of government. If we educate our people right and get them employed, we will be having more dividend from the population growth that you have talked about. But I'd like us to speak to the issues again, because if I'm right, you were once a spokesperson for Nigerian diaspora for Ashiwaju. It meant that perhaps at a point you have jackpot yourself, or you have a good relationship with those who have jackpot. So there are Nigerians now who are outside the country that I believe that you have a relationship because you spoke for them at a point in time, who left the shores of this country mainly because of the challenges that we've talked about. How do you think they are reacting to the APC's campaign for continuity in government?
I must let you understand that, like I said, traveling is a choice and everybody have reasons for traveling. For instance, somebody who is a medical doctor thinks they will be able to better their lives if they travel there, and it is allowed. What I will expect to hear is that, look, we will comparatively compare to our peers abroad. Hear me out. If a doctor leaves Nigeria to go to the United Kingdom, probably he thinks he will get better paid or better condition of service. So what I will talk, for the medical sector, I think we have not done enough in terms of primary health care. That is why you go to the teaching hospitals today and you see a huge number of people waiting to see a doctor. Many of them, if not 70-80% of them, do not have any business being in teaching hospital in the first place. If we have proper primary education, a health center working, I will explain. You have a malaria, you have a typhoid, you have and which is the most common thing here, malaria, typhoid, fever and stuff. You really don't need to go to the big hospitals for that. These are things that could have easily been handled by the primary healthcare center. But because excuse me, our local government have become almost moribund and completely useless in terms of their own contribution to our development, we have decided that everything must be blamed on the federal government. So for primary education and then primary health center, primary health care also, I'm trying to put both together now. The local government, the state government must work to elevate this in our society so that doctors can have the kind of the same type of welfare system that they will meet in the UK, for instance. A doctor should not work beyond a certain number of hours. They should be able to, and the same thing with a nurse. They should be able to work within the same ambit of system there. If you make that available, yes, those that will wait, but don't also forget, we have this peer pressure thing. Because my friends have gone, I also want to go. So those that want to go on that road will also go. However, make the home front as competitive and as appealing as feeling of nationalism and patriotism. Indians, I don't think the economy of India is better than Nigeria in terms of the people, the number of poor. Because I know you've been talking about the 130 million multidimensional poor, but what many of you still don't put is context. What the people who pick that figure pick, they use their own system. But go to my village. The father in the village has a farm. He can feed his family. He does not have money. So you call him multidimensional poor. But it's actually not poor. His farm is feeding him. He has everything he needs within that village. So he does not have a car. He probably does not have a bank account. So you call him poor. However, the man in the UK that you say is not poor, he's living on credit. His home is on credit. His food is on credit. Everything is on credit. But he's not seen as multidimensional poor. So there are contexts to this issue. But what I'm saying is that we can also build our system so that primary health care center, for instance, will be available for this kind of people. And then for their headache, their small injuries, their fever, they don't have to be rushed to the teaching hospitals. They can easily access health care in the primary healthcare center. So these are things that I think we must look into, and I will not put this on the federal government. I put this completely on the shoulders of the state and the local government, because federal government does not have any business running primary healthcare center. So we have to talk to ourselves and talk to the entire issue, as it were. The job of the federal government is to build the huge cancer center, build the good center for disease and whatever control. The job of the state and local government is to ensure that there are people that have headache, cold, malaria are treated. We have to also ensure that our primary education is competitive enough that people in the middle class can be comfortable to put their children in public schools. I went to a public school, but today I can't put my children in a public school because the standard has become almost non-available. So these are challenges. I am not, like I told you, I'm not downplaying the issues. I'm only saying no matter what you do, those that want to go will go, but make the home front as attractive as possible so that those who have gone will not have an advantage over those who have not gone. So it's like that for me. And then people that have good jobs and decide to resign from their job and sell their houses and travel, it is a choice. You can't stop those kind of things because probably they think they will have a better opportunity there. It's a right. But for those who don't want to go and who want to build Nigeria, you must give them the same quality of life to what
absolutely
those who are living will enjoy.
Absolutely, Mr. Oyalowo. So there are more people in Nigeria
issues that we must speak to as a country.
Who would also like to go, but who do not have the means. So Lassuth recently talked about 150 nurses resigning in the past 3 years, and I'm sure you are also acquainted with the news as to the implication of the brain drain.
Can you repeat that
economy. Just a minute, Mr. Oyalowo. I'd like us to talk about what your party's presidential candidate is going to do differently, particularly in the health sector, which is hardly hit by immigration that we're talking about, and also education, because many Nigerians are leaving for better education. You know, we can choose to believe it or not, but the truth is our higher institutions were on break for 8 months last year. But we're going to take a short break, and when we return, I'll allow you answer to these questions. Stay with us.
The 4th of January is dedicated to World Braille Day to celebrate the inventor Louis Braille. On 6th January, it will be 2 years when U.S. Capitol was attacked by the then President Donald Trump supporters. On 8th January 2020, Ukraine International Airline Flight 752 was shut down shortly after takeoff. 15th January is the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which marks the end of the Civil War in 1970. 24th January is International Education Day. On 27th January, it will be 21 years after the Ikeja cantonment blast occurred. 29th January is World Leprosy Day, observed to create awareness on the disease. Stay tuned to TVC News as we serve you with reports and analyses on these notable events.
So, all in favor say aye. Those against me, the ayes have it.
What do you know about the legislature, its role in governance, and as one of the 3 arms of government? Lagos Parliament is here to bring it to you as it is populous city. On Lagos Parliament, to get a chance to meet the lawmaker of the week. Events are critically reviewed. You can also observe plenary in Yoruba language. I am Abimbola Agbebi. Join me every Friday at 9 p.m. as I take you through the activities of the legislature.
It's not your regular show. It's an online interactive session where we share my views on the everyday issues that cut across politics, security, health, current affairs, governance, and so much more. I am passionate about our country. I choose to support any conversation geared towards building a better Nigeria. Babajide Kolaji Otitoju. Join me every Saturday on TVC News YouTube channel as I discuss Nigeria and the world at large on the show, Issues with Jide.
Thanks for staying with us. Now let's talk about what the APC presidential candidate would do differently. $11.6 billion we are told have been spent on foreign education in 3 years in Nigeria. CBN puts the figure at $221 million in 3 months last year. Mr. Yalowo, I'm looking at the APC manifesto. We've heard about the promise of restructuring tertiary institutions, student loans, special education funds, and things like that. What is the APC promising to do differently? Imagine putting all of those money into the Nigerian economy. It will not only save our education, it will deliver Nigeria from many of its economic woes.
Like I said earlier on, if you say our education system has collapsed, I just saw the United Kingdom advertising for Nigerian teachers to come and take over their own teachers that have all left and went to Singapore. So we have to always put a context to everything. We have challenges, but I will not agree that our education system is as horrible as they are making it, because if it was that bad, the UK will not be asking our teachers to come and teach their children, because their own people have left. They did what they call Brexit, and it has affected them now. So they are looking for nurses, doctors, and teachers from Nigeria. Now let's talk about education. Have you taken your time to do a comparative analysis of how much you pay to become a graduate in Nigeria compared to how much you pay in the UK or let's say the US, because those are the two countries that we like to compare ourselves with? Now, if you look at that, you will understand that the challenges are there. If I'm going to tell you why somebody thinks it's better to go and study abroad, he will tell you because of ASU strike, and that makes a lot of sense. So what the Asiwaju government plans to do if he becomes a president, or when he becomes a president, God willing, is that you will devolve the federal government from fully shouldering the burden of tertiary education. Like I was explaining to a friend yesterday, the United Nations standard is that you must give free education for the first 9 years. So that is from primary 1 to 6, then to JS1 to JS3. It is a must. It's a human right. You cannot deny anybody that. Children must be given free education from primary up to JS3 by force, by fire, whichever way you want to look at it. However, from that point, it becomes a choice. If you can afford the rest, yes. If you cannot afford it, then there should be some other ways to train them. So what Asiwaju is looking at it now is that we'll have a system where university will be self-autonomous completely, so you won't have ASU strike any longer. And how you will make it out is, one, you will have people taking loans to study for a degree, if they want to study for degrees. And then people will have to also be rational, look at what you think will better your life economically. Because somebody just wakes up today and then he decides that he wants to study the history of foreign languages. And then he comes out and then he's very angry that he didn't get a job in CBN. So you see, we need to also put a context to it. You can have graduates, but how applicable is your certificate to the real world? So those are the things that will be restructured. You have people going to school, rather than expect government to pay for the education, you will be able to take a loan. And then he has also said, for those who distinguish themselves, you will have system of paying back in a way that will work for you. And also, our young people, some of the things that attracts them to go to, maybe let's say a country like Canada, is the ability to own their homes and have the good things of life. Don't be deceived. If your friend traveled today in 6 months, he tell you, I bought my first house in Canada. He didn't pay for the house in cash like we have to pay here. What he has done is that there's a system that works. If you have a good job, you have a mortgage. Within 20 years, 30 years, you pay off. As long as you keep working and you are paying and servicing your loan, your home is yours. And then when you are done paying, it becomes fully yours. So what we're going to do here, which Asiwaju has promised is going to implement, and like you said, it's in our manifesto, is that we're going to have consumer system, such that if you want to buy a car, you do not have to pay 4 million to get a car. So what you will do, since you have a decent, well-paying job, you are able to go to the company or the bank or whichever organization is handling it. You take the car, you make a down payment of a certain percentage, maybe 10% or there, but I don't know how it's going to work. But you pay that percentage, and then you can own a car. You can do the same thing for your homes. So that way, the young people in Nigeria have a hope that, look, I can also have the finer things of life without having to cough out so much money. What causes corruption and make people live with anger is the fact that there are things that they need to live with, but they are not able to afford because our system is so horrible. I mean, how do you expect somebody who wants to buy a house to go and look for 50 million naira overnight? Automatically, he either commits a crime or is angry and he wants to run out of the country. Because the same house in the United Kingdom or in Canada, he will buy and doesn't have to pay. He will pay in installment over a certain number of years. So those are the things that is in our manifesto.
I hear you, Mr. Oyalowo.
You will be able to get the final things of life
about
without having to pay overnight for it.
If you can hear me, let us talk about the number of out-of-school children. 20 million as at October last year. That's 9.5 million more than the figures from 2 years ago, according to UNESCO. What is Asiwaju promising to do differently from what we have seen in the past 7.5 years in that regard?
Okay, for the number of out-of-school children, like I told you, the World Bank now, or United Nations, sorry, has made it mandatory that children of a certain age, from primary one, what you will call primary one, in some countries they call it year 1 to year 9. That is from 1, or primary 1 rather, to GS3. It must be free. Education must be free for such kind of people. So what Asiwaju will do is we'll partner with state. You know, primary education is clearly under the state and local government. We must also remember this. So state will be actively encouraged to make education free. Then you can now make a law to criminalize. Because that is what Nasir El-Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State, His Excellency Nasir El-Rufai, did in Kaduna State. He criminalized not putting your child in school. So we will make a law to criminalize it. If you have a child and you did not put him in school and you are caught, you will be jailed for a certain number of years because it is completely child abuse and a human rights violation for a parent to refuse to put their children in school. So because I'm not Asiwaju, but Asiwaju will work with the state government to ensure that free education is provided for this level that I've mentioned. And then a law will be made by encouraging the National Assembly to criminalize. And then state assembly must also put your child in school if the schools are already made free. And then what you can now do is you have incentives, maybe free books, free uniform, or even free lunch, like the government, this current government practice. I don't know whether they are still doing it now, but at the time they made school feeding an issue, and it actually at the time brought down the number of out-of-school children. So those are areas that we will look at and then ensure that children are given their right. And please don't forget, I talked about responsibility of the parent. If you are listening to me, please let's speak to ourselves. If you know you can only cater for 2 children, please give birth to 2 children. People must not hang their irresponsibility solely on government. Government will only do as much as government can do. A father and a mother must also bear the responsibility. We can sit down from here till tomorrow and talk about the number of out-of-school children. But as long as people are irresponsible, people who earn maybe minimum wage or even something just above minimum wage are deciding to flood the environment with children and they think they will come and hang their problem on anybody, it's not going to work that way. Everybody should be encouraged to have the number of children that they can fully and successfully cater for, at least up to secondary school level, so that we will have less discombobulation in the system, and then we can have a system that works for everybody.
You have raised another very important issue, but we're going to attempt to take a few calls to react to this conversation, and if it's possible to get one final thought from you after the calls. But you've also raised a very important issue about people giving birth to children. I mean, if you check, science will tell you that poor people are liable to give birth to more children. So it falls back to government whose responsibility. There are 130 million poor people. You expect them. What do poor people do with their time? They make children, they make babies. When you engage them with profitable and productive work, then you can begin to look at, considering a more responsible reaction from them. But the phone lines are showing on the screen. Just a minute, Mr. Oyalowo. Let's try to take some reactions from our viewers as to what they think about the ongoing immigration crisis in Nigeria, where we have thousands of young, upwardly mobile, skilled people who are leaving this country in drove, and also the implication on the economy, particularly, there are stories as to a whole department in the workplaces, you just wake up and then the whole place is empty because they have relocated to a better country. There's also an ongoing plan by governments in the UK and Canada. There is a system now in place welcoming skilled Nigerians in the area of technology into their own country. Mazi Okorafor has called in from Abia State. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, Mr. Nixon. Good morning, our brother on Sky. You see, there's something I want us to look at. Every year, as of starts of out of school, the number they are just giving us just 2 weeks, just a week ago, is higher than any other thing. Now, Nigerian students have been abandoned at least every day. Statistics scientifically have shown that every day 3,000 children have been abandoned in Nigeria. Where are their parents? How do they get pregnant? This is what the government should be thinking about. Now, that was notwithstanding. We have seen what is happening now. Schools have resumed the whole 36 states, including Abuja. Now, statistics have also shown that up to 65% of children are still at home because of school fees. How do we handle such a situation? Because that is why, like what your guest was saying about the terms of demography of a family, of a community. We are not looking at it. Because every day we are talking about increasing. And the minimum wage is still stagnant. And the cost of living continues increasing. How do you, even the Japa we are talking about, I'm telling you, there's no government in this country that will stop that issue of Japa, unless we make sure that the youth, at least 60 or 70% youth, are gainfully employed. Not a question of collecting maybe 1 million or 600, at least have a minimum wage. I think it is the government and the land advised to that. Please take care of yourself. Either you have 2 children or a child, minimum 1. Or maximum 2. It was even the 3 we are talking. It's still expensive, and we're looking at now. Universities. I want to find out from our guests. Universities have started increasing school fees. How do we tackle it? From now, as of latest report yesterday, as we were complaining that the agreement they entered with the federal government has not been completed. They just abandoned it halfway. How do we handle that issue? And some schools they are writing exams. Some schools are still waiting. Is that what we are going to face? So that is why.
Thank you, Mazi, for your contribution. That's your time. So there's a lot of talk about the response of government in the areas of huge concerns for Nigeria. You consider the fact that, Mazi talked about taking responsibility for the number of children that you have. There was a time when there was a one-child policy in China, but the way it works is that government takes responsibility, just like what my guest said earlier. If there is a free education program to a particular age, then government now says you have to take responsibility for more than a particular number of children that you have given birth to. But when there are no structures on ground to take all of these responsibilities off the people, it's hard to tell people the number of children that they give birth to. Yakub has called in from Dokwemo. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, and then good morning to Mr. Oyalowo. And then he has spoken, and then he has spoken very well. I don't have doubt in my mind, giving national government Tinubu opportunity to govern this country. All this promising of this manifesto is going to be done. Why am I saying that? I'm very sure you are living here in Lagos. And then the only thing I'm not sure is that maybe your children is in public school or private school. But I particularly, I can tell you for free, my children is in public school today. And then I stand to be corrected again. Here in Lagos, I'm not talking about other states in this country. This thing started from Bola and Tinubu. That is why we need to vote wisely coming 2023 that we have. We need to look at antecedents of all those people coming out to govern this country. Why am I saying that? This thing started from Bola and Tinubu, from primary school to the secondary school here in Lagos. Anybody can call to this program and challenge me. Nobody. We know we paid no damn. We are not paying anything. And then the standard of the education in Lagos has been raised very, very high. If you don't merit to promote from one class to another, you are going to repeat. That is what all our children now. Even if you organize a debate here in Lagos, the public school students, they are going to come forth. I can tell you for free. Because of what Bola and Tinubu have laid on ground, and then it was followed up by Fashola Ambode and other governors, even including someone. In fact, someone have done a lot as well. So having said that, we talked 2 weeks ago. Do you know what this guy is telling me? He said Nigeria is the best place ever to stay. I said, why?
All right, Mr. Yakub, I think that's your time. We have to go now. Mr. Yalawo, perhaps Mr. Yakub has done the job for you. We'll just probably get a final comment from you as we wrap up the show this morning. I think it's a mixed bag of feelings. Mr. Yakub is making a case for the reality of the quality of education in Lagos. Which I believe there are many reactions to that as to where we are versus where we're supposed to be, and where Lagos is versus where many other parts of the country is. 20 million children out of school, that's perhaps arguably the highest number across the globe. There has to be some sort of a education emergency right now as to how we can get our children back to school, because if they are not in school, then our future is not secured. We're breeding idle hands, for terrorism, for crime, for, rebellion against authority. I think that Mr. Oyalowo is back. I'll just have you make a brief comment in 60 seconds in response to the calls, and we can go home from there. I'm asking for your final comment on the show, Mr. Oyalowo. Can you hear me?
Okay, like I said earlier on, I'm glad for the last caller. I think his name is Yakub. The Lagos State. I can hear you. I'm hearing you. Can you hear me? Mr. Yakub said something about what Asiwaju has done in Lagos. And if you remember, I also said education up to GS3 is clearly the job of the state. So Asiwaju will ensure that the state offer free education to children of a certain age, so that they can enjoy what they need to enjoy, and also we will ensure that the universities that is not under the purview of our state get what they need to get. Let there be autonomy, so that those who can afford to go to university will go to university, and then we will not have all these disruptions. So the plans are there to make it better. Asiwaju gave free education when he was a state governor. Up to secondary school, he paid WAEC and NECO fees of every child, irrespective of where you come from. So I believe under Asiwaju's government, we are going to have a better deal for children in schools and for young people who want to work, because the plans are already there.
Morning.
I wish I had it.
I'm afraid we have to go now, Mr. Oyalowo. Perhaps we'll have some other time to discuss this further. Mr. Oyalowo is a member, Public Affairs Committee of the APC Presidential Council. Thank you so much for joining the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. We'll be back next week, God willing, and we're also counting down to the return of the veteran, Uncle Yuri, on the show. So you should look forward to it sometime later next week. Bye for now.
Never miss a moment. Instant breaking news from all over the globe. Live streaming of your favorite programs delivered directly to you. Watch anytime from anywhere on your mobile or smart devices. Download the TVC News app today. Available on Google Play and Apple Store.
Every week, Green Angle, in partnership